Welcome to Business Influencers. Hope everyone is having a great week. We want to thank everybody again for tuning in to Business Influencers each and every week, where we help business professionals and others, help them to scale their level of influence and take their business to the next level. Again, we are so honored that each and every week the show continues to grow because of you and getting the word out there. TALRadio also is very thankful for you listeners each and every week. And what's great about this show, even though this is also an Indian-based organization, this show is also aired in India as well. So you're getting exposure even in India. So we're not just here in North America, but we are everywhere in the country. And again, we want to thank you. And we want to thank our sponsor, Global Awakening Events, for being the sponsor. Their event is taking place in Miami on February 29th through March 2nd. This is going to be an event that will be bringing in thought leaders from around the world, sharing their insights and expertise to help you take your business to the next level. It will conclude with the Yacht Mastermind, which is fantastic. And this is where you get additional opportunity to kind of rub elbows with people that have already been successful in the areas that you are looking to be successful in. And this is a great opportunity to take advantage of that. If you'd like to find out more information, check them out at globalawakenedevents.com. That's globalawakenedevents.com. Well, we got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about the inner game of business. And as everybody knows here, that people know that I'm a big foundational guy. It's all about how we think to be, to become, to do, and have different and better results. And that all starts with how we think differently and how we can take our inner game and really make our outer game even better as a result of that. And we're going to be talking with Angus Nelson. He's the founder of Evolve Leadership, is the secret weapon behind high-performing leaders in Fortune 500 companies, celebrity circles, and disruptive startups. Specializing in modern business psychology, he transformed work cultures at industry powerhouses like Walmart, Coca-Cola, BMW, Adobe, and Fidelidad, if I pronounced that right, and based in Lisbon with his family and 2 larger than necessary dogs. He is the go-to strategist for those that have committed to workplace excellence and personal fulfillment. And without further ado, we welcome Angus Nelson to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, and I'm really jealous about this Yacht Mastermind thing. That sounded really fun.
Yeah, well, I'll get you more information on it and see if we can maybe have you as a thought leader. I'll ask the organizer and
Nice.
Definitely do that. Absolutely.
Nice.
Well, I love this topic, Angus. I mean, if we could talk a little bit about, from your perspective, why is this so important? That inner game, not only at the individual level, but at a team level and then, of course, at the organization level, depending upon the size of a company, why that's so important.
Well, the biggest piece, and every one of you that are listening, you know this, is like you're going to have all these gremlins in your head. And it doesn't matter at what stage you are in your company, what level of leadership, whether you're in a corporation, whether you're in, a Series A or a unicorn startup. All of it's the same. It's what's between your ears. And so many times we operate in our day from this place of impulse, like a pinball and a pinball machine. It's like all the different fires that need to be put out. We're like bing, bing, ba-ding, ding, ba-ding, ding. And if you're not intentional, you will be completely reactionary to everything around you. And one of the things that I've learned in working with Fortune 500 and all the startup leadership that I have is that when we get present, when we calm down, when we get intentional and we can get into alignment with how we want to lead and who we want to be, only then can we really make significant things happen. We're no longer reactionary. Now we can be intentional. Now we can actually lead, right?
I love that word that you said, intentional. And it's often a word that people know, but rarely really understand, because everyone operates from expectations tied to outcomes, which put in my opinion, or my perspective, into the control we can't control, situations, people beyond our control. But when I can be intentional, I can focus on the things that are within my control. There's a big difference in how that changes how you look at things, like in terms of, how you make decisions, how you communicate, how you take risks, action, and so on. So I'd love you to share on that.
Well, I will take it into another notch, is that element of performance.
Yeah.
Where everything we do is tied to either a validation or a vindication. It's like, I do this so that either I can get an attaboy, I can get a raise, I can get attention, I can get liked, I can get kept in case there's a round of layoffs. And so we get into this performance mentality where we're just trying to do what we do just to make someone else happy, or just to operate from a place of scarcity is really what it is. We're in fear. We're in some kind of a operation where we are not good enough, or we don't deserve, or not worthy. And this is where we get into the inner game, is because our entire life has been programmed by different stories we've told ourselves. We've experienced something through our school age, through our high school, through college, through even adulthood. And if we have failures, if we have mishaps or missteps, oftentimes what happens is we start telling ourselves these stories about who we are, what we're capable. Now you step into this sense of leadership, and all those gremlins are still stuck in your head. And the moment someone says something with a certain tone, a certain way, it triggers a response to some story you may have told yourself. And if it is anything around your performance, you're going to try and compensate. You're going to work longer hours. You're going to make bigger sacrifices. You're going to like push, go into the grind. And the irony is we ultimately will create the very thing we are afraid of. We'll sabotage ourselves in some form or fashion if our inner game hasn't been made resolute in who we are and what we're here to do. And this gets into this level of understanding, like if you pause for just a second and ask yourself, like, why am I about to do this thing? Or why am I feeling what I'm feeling when my boss says that thing? This is the level of intention most people don't go to, is because instead they just want to lash out. They want to get defensive. They want to justify, or they want to deflect. They want to push it off on someone else. It's someone else's fault. Somebody else didn't do a thing. And all of this from this construct of this performance. I'm trying to look good so that I can get to somewhere, instead of being intentional. And now I operate from this congruence of who I am and what I'm trying to create. And this is the ultimate rub. And I call this the Spice Girl principle. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. And most leaders are operating from all the things of what they think everyone else wants, all the other expectations, the expectations from my parents, the expectations from my spouse, the expectations from my boss, my expectations from the stockholders, whatever, versus what is it I really want to create in this business, in my leadership, in my team, to our customer. And this is where that inner game becomes so important. And most people don't do the work of getting connected into that realm. And I know this is something that's kind of vibing with you. So I'm going to push it back to you. Like for you and getting intentional, what does that mean for you, Chris?
Well, for me, getting intentional is I have to be, no one can control my communication. Nobody can control my behavior, my attitude, my emotions, and how I respond versus react to situations, and my action. I can only control that. So I have to be intentional every day to focus on that I'm operating from a place of being assertive in my communication, not passive or aggressive, or both. Mm-hmm. Same with my behavior, that I'm being assertive, that's in alignment with my communication. My attitude, I have to show up every day saying that things are happening for me, not to me. So not that victim mentality or the excuses, pointing the finger at everybody else. But challenges and obstacles are a good thing, because I can't grow and expand without them. Yeah. And then choosing now, no matter whatever emotion I'm experiencing, that I can still choose to respond rather than to react to the situation or others, and then taking massive daily action to the priorities that matter. My intentions can be aligned with that, and I'm only responsible for that. I can't control that in someone else, even if they work for me. Yes, I can maybe ask and be directive in certain cases, but I still can't control those 5 things. So how can I be a better example and a resource to inspire people to do that for themselves, and then repeat that process to create a more interdependent environment rather than a codependent one that complements one another, not depends on one another.
Yeah, but isn't it so much easier when we can just say, you made me this way. You made me angry.
Yeah.
If you hadn't done this, I wouldn't have blown my lid. I wouldn't have cussed you out if you hadn't been such a knucklehead. Like, that's the thing that most people do. And that's the danger, right? Is they're operating from this like really crappy way of just, reactionary stuff. For me, like, everything you just said is absolutely true. And when we learn to be clear and have clarity in our communications, and like you said, be assertive. Assertive doesn't mean you're a jerk. Assertive doesn't mean that you're rude. Assertive just means you're being like really intentional with the words you're saying, that this is the thing I'm looking for. This is the thing I'm hoping for. This is the thing I want to communicate. And when we get into this stage, then now we go deeper. So now let's go into the inner game. When I'm communicating, my belief is I'm going to say what I want to say in the way I want to say it. No, that is not communication. That is just you speaking. And real communication instead is I'm going to say what I want to say in the way the other person can receive it. And this requires emotional intelligence. This requires you to understand some of the human behavior and psychology of the people around you. And how much more important is this in this day and age when we have so much uncertainty, so much, ambiguity, plus we've got all the outside factors of the economy and war and the last few years that we've been involved with the pandemic. These are all things that have changed. And then you add to that generationally, where we go from boomers and millennials and Gen Xers and Gen, Zers and whatever else comes after. I don't know, maybe I forgot a couple there, but the dynamics of how people are operating in the workplace, added with technology, added with artificial intelligence, like all these different things, is, are we paying attention to who's around us? And more importantly, are we being intentional with our influence to those around us?
Yeah.
That's what causes you to have to show up differently and take responsibility for how you lead. What is your temperament? What is your self-regulation? What is the psychological safety that you're providing for the people around you? And some of the old generation like, well, God, these people, you're just supposed to figure it out. I didn't have this stuff when I was a kid. You do it. And that's why I call my organization Evolve Leadership, because we have to evolve.
We got to evolve
to this new stuff.
That's not
right?
flipping a switch and happens overnight.
Yeah. So I know I just like gave you like this big.
Oh, like, you gave so much
stuff. There's so much ammunition in there.
There's so much gold that you shared there, Angus. I mean, so much gold. What would you now, if somebody like a leader that let's say you've worked with business leaders in a lot of these big companies like Coca-Cola and Adobe, Walmart, and so on. What would you say would be like, if they have this, they've grown up with a certain leadership style or a certain way of like how they, in this case, let's say they were reacting to situations and sometimes they didn't come across very pleasant. What would you say would be the first steps to making that shift? Is there a certain process, a routine, something they could do? And I know it's not one size fits all, but something where they can start that could help them start making that shift to be that better example, better resource for their people, their peers, the people that report to them, and so on.
The first thing is, if somebody comes to that point of awareness, I would say, thank you, congratulations. And it's about time, right?
Yes.
And because you've come to this revelation, it's likely there's something around you that got your attention. Either you got into some kind of a hardship where either you got let go because of your attitude, maybe you had some people confront you, where your team says you're being a jack, what, I don't know if you can cuss on this thing, but you
could say we're good here.
Okay. You're jackass, right? If there's an element where maybe a spouse or a partner, a co-founder, someone has confronted you and said, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. Typically, when someone who has these kind of habitual styles, when they come to an awareness, it's because something kind of grabbed them by the back of the neck and shook them and said, hey, I'm trying to get your attention here. In that moment, the proper thing, the best thing you can do in that moment is get a third party, someone who can mentor, someone who can coach, someone who can be a mirror. Maybe it's a close personal friend that you trust. Maybe it's a therapist. Maybe it's, a superior. And the first thing you want to do is see your reflection. And what I mean by that is we all need a mirror. Someone who can show and give us feedback of things that we were either unwilling or unready to see. And suddenly someone reveals it. And in that moment, you're like, aha, this is it. And it's kind of like, you went around all day after lunch, you got home and you dropped your keys off at the table, and you looked into the mirror and you saw that little thing in your teeth. There's that broccoli. I had broccoli at lunch and nobody told me that broccoli was in my teeth. This is the same kind of thing as you've got these habits or these styles or this attitude that nobody has felt safe enough or close enough to be able to share with you. And in that moment, when you recognize it, it's like, how do I get that out? Well, you're going to need a tool. And that tool could be this individual I just shared, this third party person who can be that mirror and reflect back to you. A second piece of that is you can do some different inner work where there's different books around personal development, personal reflection. And sometimes people think, oh, that stuff's too woo. It's like, well, right now you need a little woo. Woo to get you the woo out of your way. A
little woo to get the wow that you're looking for.
Yeah, right? And it doesn't mean that you're going to be like kumbaya and getting around drum circles. Like, I'm not saying you have to go to ayahuasca, ceremonies. This is not the thing that you've made it in your head. What it is getting really honest and taking this thing called extreme ownership, where you own your part that you've been playing in your story. And that's the biggest piece is, in Alcoholics Anonymous, they say the first step is admitting, that you've got a problem. And for yourself, it's that admitting, like, I've probably been doing this way. And not only is it affected what's currently around me, but what does it cost me in my career, in my leadership, in my relationships, because I've been this way? Because I've been blind to these situations or these scenarios, because I've been blind to this attitude or this arrogance or this narcissism. And when you get to extreme ownership, there's this level of humility that comes where you can receive and now see things you otherwise couldn't see. So now you have this person in your field who's giving you feedback. Number two is you can do a 360. Go and ask some of your colleagues, boss, people that you've led, hey, I'm in a season of life where I'm trying to get better. Can you give me some reflection of where are some of the areas where you think I could be a better leader? Where are the areas where maybe I've challenged our relationships in ways I shouldn't have? And having the humility to hear what they say and receive it, right? And then lastly, I talked about, these tools, the different parts and pieces, like there are books, there are videos, there are conferences, there are masterminds, all these different tools that are out there, but specifically like writing a list of what do I want? That's that Spice Girl principle. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want, because that's what you're going to create. I want to create this in my life. I want peace. I want fulfillment. I want satisfaction. I want meaning. I want contribution. I want generosity. I want abundance, whatever that thing is. I want quality relationships. Like map that out and say, this is what I want, right? And then the second piece of this is, who do I need to be to create it? Success leaves clues. And when you get really clear on what you're actually trying to create, not what the expectations of others, not because of all the things that others have tried to shape for you, but when you sat down and said, this is what I want, then it's like, who must I be to do that? Like the kind of caliber of individual, the kind of people I would hang around with, the kind of habits and routines that I have, because success leaves clues. I can look at other people who are experiencing the kind of life I want to create, and I can watch their model. How are they treating people? How are they managing their time? Like some people that I've worked with, they've never had a virtual assistant. They manage their own email. They manage their own calendar. They do all these things themselves. And the first thing I help them do is like unload that. because it's playing into decision fatigue. It's taxing your time. It's doing all these things. And that's one of the first things that they have to let go of when they tell me what I want to create in my life is peace. I'm like, well, the first thing you need to do is get out of your email, get out of your calendar. That will give you so much peace and you don't even know. I'm like, oh, but I'm like a control freak. Well, yeah. I mean, someone else is going to say, so you can't trust them. Well, I mean, that's not what I'm like. So how is this played out in other parts of your team where you haven't trusted people and you try to control them? Well, shit. Now we're having a real conversation. And this continues to uncover the areas of our life that we've been blinded to for far too long.
Yeah. So important. And I loved how you illustrated that process, for the individual. And it starts with awareness, because like you just started, it starts with that aha moment that, hey, I got to do something different. If I keep doing what I'm doing, then it's going to be the same results. And I can't point the finger at everybody else or situations. I can only now look at myself. If I don't change, nothing else does.
I just got a message from one of my members. He was leaving the city he was currently in, and he just said, "Hey, Angus, I just want you to know this is my last weekend. I'm headed to the gym. This is the last weekend I'm going to be in said city. I'm going back to the city I'm from, and I have you to thank for that." And I know the backstory to all of this. So I'll kind of fill you in. He said, my wife and I are getting back together, and the way that I'm leading my company and what I'm doing in my company, there's no way I would have been able to do this without you. And I just want to say thanks. And it was almost a year to the day that he was sending me this message when he first reached out. And he's like, I'm angry. I've moved to a different city because I can't be with my wife. I love her, but I can't be with her. I don't know what I want to do with my business, whether I burn it to the ground or whether I sell it, but I hate it. And this is a business that he started.
He built
it. It's a multi-million-dollar company, right? And through our work together and getting him to like start seeing things, he can't unsee these elements once you see them. Oh, this is why this, right? So over the course of this year that we've just gone through, of him letting go of all these different things and the power and the control and the ego and all the different things. And so much of it was tied to these stories he was telling himself. And he had been in the military, so that played into it, and the sense of control, the sense of all this honor, blah, 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 and pride. And once we started decoupling, it was like a snowball of stuff that needed to get out of the way. And he just was so open and so teachable. And man, I just honor this dude because he had so much courage to just like, you know what? I don't know what I don't know, and I'm just going to trust the process. And he let me just walk him through this whole thing. And at the end of this time, he's like, I cannot believe the life I'm living now, where he's fallen in love back with his business. He fell back in love with his wife. And ultimately, he fell back in love with himself.
Right there is so important. I saw a quote recently, love isn't about finding the right person or situation. It's about, again, love is about what you become for yourself, that you love yourself and what you become from it. And then everything else kind of complements that.
Yeah. He put so much pressure on himself, and this goes full circle where we started, is he was living under everyone else's expectations.
Yeah.
The board, some parent, the drill sergeant, like all the different things.
And it probably started, like you said, even with his parents, dad or mom, but from his childhood, because it always goes back to that. I know for me, it always went back to mostly my father, because I always had a strong need for validation because I didn't get it growing up from him.
And I'll share you this, like this stuff is not weakness. When I come to work with, these leaders, these high performers are often high performing because of these kinds of stories. They're, justifying or vindicating or proving their value, their worth, their power, their possibility. And because they're highly capable, because they're high capacity, like go. And they make magic happen. But they do it from scarcity. They do it from fear. They do it from all these other things. And they would tell me like, oh, I'm just carrying so much shame just sharing this with you. This gives me such pain. Just recognize this. I'm like, no, stop that. I said, this is actually your power. You're taking back your power by finally giving definition to who you truly are today. Everything you've gone through has given you lessons and wisdom and insight. And now this is your new unfair advantage for your future. This is your leverage. And now you're going to operate from this place of abundance, overflow, source, and supply. And now the leader you've become is only a product of all the things you've gone through. So you're standing in a place of promise and possibility. So this is your power. Don't look at that stuff as shame. Be grateful. Let that be your gratitude. Let that be your sense of creation, because that's the tuition you've paid for the graduation that you're now experiencing.
Wow. Powerful, powerful stuff. You know, Angus, I know we could go on for a while. I mean, you're definitely going to be on another show because you've delivered so much value here, and I can't thank you enough. This is only the tip of the iceberg, but you've really wet the whistle for our audience in this particular area, especially for those that are leaders of, in different organizations, whether if it's a small business to a Fortune 500 company. We're definitely going to have another extension onto this show at some point in the future. We want to let you all know that here, you're hearing this, that he will be on again. How can people get to, reach out to get to know you? What are you up to, and anything you'd like to share with them?
Sure. You can find me at evolveleadership.org is where you can learn more about what we do for companies and individuals. And then if you want to hear my story and, learn what I know, you can listen to our podcast, Evolve Leadership. And you can find that on all the, different podcasts available, as well as we also do it in video. You can find it on YouTube as well. That's where you can get all this stuff, marinate in it, learn more about yourself.
Thank you so much. We want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule, being in Portugal. I know it's a little bit later there where you are, and thank you so much for being here. And we highly encourage everyone to reach out to him on LinkedIn. Also reach out and listen and download the podcast, Evolve Leadership. It is a great podcast and definitely so much value there, not only from him himself, but also the guests and experts that he has on the show. And thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Chris. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. We want to thank you, listeners, being here each and every week here with the Business Influencer Show. Again, check us out at TALRadio at TALRadio.org. We air on Spotify, Apple, as well as our YouTube channel. That way you get to see both of us. Now you can see us here, on video, whereas the other platforms are going to be strictly audio. So whatever you prefer, you could get this valuable information. And we highly encourage those that are listening now to also listen to this show and again in its entirety. There is great golden nuggets that Angus has laid down here for you, and go back and listen to it because there's perhaps something that you missed that you'll pick up the next time that can help move you and your level of influence to the next level as an evolved leader. And with that being said, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week.